Hello listeners, we are your co-hosts Jeanine Bailey and Marie Quigley for the Empower World Coaching and Leadership Podcast.
Empower World brings guests who are making a difference to the world to inspire coaches and leaders who lead with mind, heart and soul.
Hello and welcome everybody to the next episode of the Empower World Leadership and Coaching Podcast. And I'm here today with Marie again, so it's wonderful to be back with you in this space, Marie. How are you?
I'm great, Jeanine. It's morning time coming into afternoon time for me, and I know it's night time for you.
It is. In fact, it's quite late here, but I feel, and despite having been diagnosed with COVID, I am feeling quite alive right at this moment. So feeling very fortunate.
Yeah, you look alive and you certainly don't look like you've got COVID. So thank you for doing what you do and coming on, even though you're not 100%.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, at the moment, though, I feel great. And so I'm delighted that we can come together and record another podcast for our listeners. And today, what we thought we might explore, or tonight, or this morning, is the power dynamics in coaching. So we know that this is a thing that can happen. Perhaps it can change and shift within a session. Perhaps it's a consistent pattern of a dynamic that is showing up between a client and coach. So this is, and potentially between a coach and a group of clients as well. So it's something to be aware of because it can impact how we are being and how we are showing up as a coach when power dynamics are in play, but quite noticeably in some situations and circumstances. Often, I believe, Marie, you and I feel like we have wonderful partnerships. We create partnerships with our clients, and yet we know sometimes a client can come along where the dynamic shifts for some reason or another. So it's being aware of this as coaches that then we can utilize that information, do something differently when we're aware of that. But I think it's worth sharing what that power dynamic might be all about, Marie. What's up for you?
Yeah, I'm thinking, my mind's going in many different directions. So I'm going back to when I first started coaching and when I first started doing executive coaching, actually. And I remember my nerves and I remember my kind of lack of trust in myself and my lack of confidence, because there was somewhere in me a belief that maybe I wasn't quite good enough to go in and be an executive coach. So I was trained, but was I really good enough? Could I kind of hit the mark with this coaching in an executive world? And I remember potentially probably a few experiences where I felt less than, and that feeling less than I gave my power to the client, and of course they are always more than in the coaching, but it felt like I'd lost my ability to challenge the client and to be brave with the client because I felt less than. And so my coaching was soft. Maybe I was colluding with a client on his perspective about something instead of challenging his thinking about it. And I noticed the power dynamics for me was I didn't feel enough, and therefore my coaching wasn't powerful enough. And, you know, it's a great thing to take to supervision, because if this happens in our work, then processing it with a supervisor helps us kind of unpick some of the things that are going on for us, because maybe the client didn't even know this was happening. And maybe it was his first experience of coaching. And that is interesting, because that he's not going to get the best experience of me as a coach if I feel less than. Am I making sense here, Jeanine?
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, you never know what that client was experiencing. Potentially, they might have had an opposite kind of experience or the same sort of experience as you. In fact, they might have come in thinking, you know, I'm not perhaps good enough for this coach that's in front of me. who knows? With that story, Marie, what I heard was that there were a few things that let you know that there was this power dynamic going on, although maybe back then as a new coach, perhaps not so consciously aware of this, this feeling of not being brave enough, being softer. So really sort of backing off from being that challenger and supporting the client to create those, those wonderful ahas. And your story resonates with a story of mine where certainly in my early stages of also executive coaching and meeting a client, and I remember going in feeling, confident and ready. And I can't remember what triggered this, but all of a sudden I felt like yourself, not good enough. I was not feeling the partnership. And I remember going into a whole lot of explanation of what coaching is and how it supports, and bringing in a model to support the client to understand what coaching was. So I was doing a lot of work and a lot of talking to support the client to recognize the importance of coaching, as well as trying to give him an experience. But I know that, yeah, I did a lot of talking in that particular of education, blurting perhaps. So potentially, and I absolutely do believe there was a power dynamic going there. I put this gentleman on a pedestal and didn't go into that brave place of giving an experience that was challenging to support him to create greater awareness for himself.
I think that's a really interesting story that you shared, because it shows the different patterns we have when the power dynamic might come in. So you're right at the beginning of my coaching experience, I didn't know that I had a pattern of quietening myself down when I feel less than. And, you've just described other coaches, yourself, might talk more than normal. That could be your pattern. It is interesting to find out as a coach what our patterns are in when we're in any relationship, really. Who are we being in the relationship, and what changes if this power dynamic shift happens? I was listening to a call from a coach the other day during some mentoring, and it really felt like the client was kind of bowing down to the coach, and you could hear the language that the client was using to the coach was kind of deferential, that they were the all-knowing, kind of the wise person in the room. And you could really feel it from the way this coach was interacting with, the client was interacting with the coach, looking for a lot of acknowledgement, a lot of advice. Each time the coach posed a question, and actually the coach was doing a lot of teaching, and part of their role outside of this coaching was as I suppose a teacher in some shape or form to their clients. So they brought in the dynamics that they were using outside of the coaching relationship into the coaching relationship, and they became teacher-student instead of equal partners in this. And it was fascinating to watch. The coach wasn't aware about it until we started to unpack the session, but you could hear it from the client's tone of voice, how they were responding. It was a fascinating observation for the coach to start to learn about themselves.
Yes, what a great story. And this is the thing, the power dynamics could go either way. And so with that great story, it's sharing how the client can put the coach on the pedestal, potentially expecting the coach to give them those words of wisdom and guidance and advice, perhaps, or maybe ask those wonderful magical questions that creates wonderful ships for them, and it can go the other way. So we might work with someone who is a CEO, CXO, and that may put pressure on the coach that, I've got to be a certain way. I've got to have my act together. I need to know stuff. So, and of course, we know as coaches, it's not about knowing what our clients knows. It's about understanding coaching and the support, the processes, the ways that we can support our clients to create, excuse me, new conscious awareness.
Certainly is.
So it potentially, those power dynamics can be a blind spot for us as a coach. And so again, that's, as you referred to earlier, Marie, getting supervision to support you to bring that blind spot, or a mentor to support you to bring that blind spot to consciousness, so that we can work out a different way. But also using that awareness when we're creating it, to use it as an instrument. Reflect back, I'm noticing that it feels like you're putting me on a pedestal, or I'm noticing that I feel like I'm diminishing myself when we start our sessions together. I tend to defer. I'm wondering what's happening, and I'm wondering what that might be, how that might be playing out in your life, client.
So really important to start to pay attention to what's happening with us in the conversation as self, as you said, Jeanine. So some things to pay attention to. What are you saying when you're going into the coaching session? How are you arriving there? What are your beliefs about yourself, and what are your beliefs about the client? Are you staying in the role of coach, or do you want to move into teacher or consulting? Do you want to be the one to know and share that with a client? That's interesting. So start to pay attention to who you are being just before you walk in the door. And if you want to balance that power dynamic, be transparent. Recontract with your client about some of the ways of working so that you can create more balance. And whether it's you who's kind of put yourself on a pedestal, or you've put the client on a pedestal, come together and have a conversation about it and see how you can work in a more effective way together.
Yeah, fantastic mentoring advice, Marie. It, again, when it shows up, it's another beautiful, powerful way to learn and support ourselves as coaches in service of our clients.
It certainly is. So thank you, everybody, for listening. We know this is a short snippet of the power dynamics. Come and find out more about Empower World on all our blogs. We talk about lots of interesting things. If you like this podcast, please share. We love doing it. If you like listening, please let us know. And we look forward to seeing you on our next episode.
Thanks for listening. You can find out more about us on our website, www.empower-world.com, and on our social media networks, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Be empowered.